Chapter 1. 1. Arjuna's Dilemma. The blind king inquired from his charioteer, "O Sanjaya, tell me, in detail, what did my sons and the Pandavas do in the battlefield before the war started?" 1.01. Chapter Summary. Sanjaya said, Arjuna asked his charioteer friend, Lord Krishna, to drive his chariot between the two armies so that he could see the armies on both sides. Arjuna felt great compassion to see his friends and relatives on the opposite side, whom he must kill to win this war. He became confused, spoke of the evils of war, and refused to fight or do his duty as a warrior. Arjuna sat down on the back seat of the chariot with his mind overwhelmed with sorrow. Verse 1.47. Note: some non-essential verses from chapters 1 and 2 only have been omitted for ease of understanding the teachings of the Gita by the first-time readers. Chapter 2. 2. Spiritual Knowledge. Sanjaya said, Lord Krishna spoke these words to Arjuna, whose eyes were tearful and downcast, and who was overwhelmed with compassion and despair. 2.01. O King, Lord Krishna, as if smiling, spoke these words to distressed Arjuna in the midst of the two armies. 2.10. Teachings of the Gita begins. Important verses are highlighted. First-time readers should read and understand these verses first. For International Gita Society, the Supreme Lord said, "You grieve for those who are not worthy of grief, and yet speak words of wisdom. The wise grieve neither for the living nor for the dead." 2.11. There was never a time when these monarchs, you or I, did not exist, nor shall we ever cease to exist in the future. 2.12. Just as a living being acquires a childhood body, a youth body, and an old age body during this life, similarly, it acquires another new body after death. The wise are not deluded by this. 2.13. The contacts of the senses with the sense objects give rise to the feelings of heat and cold, pain and pleasure. They are transitory and impermanent. Therefore, learn to endure them, O Arjuna. 2.14. Because a calm person who is not afflicted by these sense objects and is steady in pain and pleasure becomes fit for immortality, O Arjuna. 2.15. The spirit is eternal. Body is transitory. The invisible spirit is eternal, and the visible world, including the physical body, is transitory. The reality of these two is indeed certainly seen by the seers of truth. 2.16. The spirit by which all this universe is pervaded is indestructible. No one can destroy the imperishable spirit. 2.17. Bodies of the eternal, immutable, and incomprehensible spirit are perishable. Therefore, fight, O Arjuna. 2.18. One who thinks that spirit is a slayer and one who thinks spirit is slain are both ignorant, because spirit neither slays nor is slain. 2.19. The spirit is neither born nor does it die at any time. It does not come into being or cease to exist. It is unborn, eternal, permanent, and primeval. The spirit is not destroyed when the body is destroyed. 2.20. O Arjuna, how can a person who knows that the spirit is indestructible, eternal, unborn, and immutable kill anyone or cause anyone to be killed? 2.21. Death and reincarnation of the soul. Just as a person puts on new garments after discarding the old ones, similarly, the living entity acquires new bodies after casting away the old bodies. 2.22. Weapons do not cut the spirit, fire does not burn it, water does not make it wet, and the wind does not make it dry. Spirit cannot be cut, burned, wet, or dried. It is eternal, all-pervading, unchanging, immovable, and primeval. February 23rd, 24. The spirit is said to be unexplainable, incomprehensible, and unchanging. Knowing this spirit as such, you should not grieve. 2.25. Even if you think that this living being takes birth and dies perpetually, Even then, O Arjuna, you should not grieve like this. Because death is certain for one who is born, and birth is certain for one who dies, and the cycle of birth-death continues. Therefore, you should not lament over the inevitable.
2.26-27 All beings, O
Arjuna, are unmanifest, invisible to our physical eyes before birth and after death. They manifest between the birth and the death only. What is there to grieve about? 2.28 Some look upon Bhagavad Gita 5. This spirit as a wonder. Another describes it as wonderful, and others hear of it as a wonder. Even after hearing about it, very few people know it. 2.29 O Arjuna, the spirit that dwells in the body of all beings is eternally indestructible. Therefore, you should not mourn for anybody. 2.30 Duty of a warrior. Considering also your duty as a warrior, you should not waver, because there is nothing more auspicious for a warrior than a righteous war. 2.31 Only the fortunate warriors, O Arjuna, get such an opportunity for a righteous war against evil that is like an open door to heaven. 2.32 Commentary. The righteous war is not a religious war against the followers of other religions. The righteous war may be waged even against our own evildoer kith and kin. Rigveda 6:75-19. Life is a continuous battle between the forces of evil
and goodness.
Whosoever kills an innocent human being, it shall be regarded as if he has killed the entire humanity. Surah 5.32. It is better to die for a right cause and acquire the grace of sacrifice than to die an ordinary but compulsory death. The gates of heaven open wide for those who stand up to vindicate justice and righteousness, dharma. Not to oppose an evil is to indirectly support it. Very similar ideas are expressed in other scriptures of the world. The Bible says, "Happy are those who suffer persecution, because they do what God requires. The kingdom of heaven belongs to them." Matthew 5.10. There is no sin in killing an aggressor. Whosoever helps and supports an aggressor is also an aggressor. Thus, all those who supported Kauravas were basically aggressors and deserve to be eliminated. If you will not fight this righteous war, then you will fail in your duty, lose your reputation, and incur sin. 2.33 People will talk about your disgrace forever. To the honored, dishonor is worse than death. 2.34 The great warriors will think that you have retreated from the battle out of fear. Those who have greatly esteemed you will lose respect for you. 2.35 Your enemies will